Hello again, my friend. I wanted to end this Mind Games program by having a thought-provoking discussion where I can leave you with some warnings, some wisdoms, and some ways that I know will serve you going forward. That's why I titled this part of the program Lens Perspective, because my aim is to shift the way you think, to elevate your awareness, give you some food for thought that will open up your mind, that will awaken you a little bit more, and that will safeguard you. Because let's face it, we can do all of this amazing inner work and really get our house in order, really get ourselves to a place of having a strong mind. And yet, none of us are impervious to the world out there. We are all being affected in some way, shape, or form by a world of reactions and situations out there that could potentially get in the way or try to deviate us from what we want to do, how we want to live. And especially where the mind is concerned, we must stand guard of our mind and not let the noise, the drama, the trauma, the flashing lights, the fears or the coercions to take over and dominate the way we think. We must be careful and cautious in terms of what we will and will not entertain inside the mind. So let's discuss several topics that I think is really going to enlighten you and radically change the way that you see and operate in the world out there. I will begin with a topic that I've titled Hearsay, Don't Think. Not so long ago, I was enjoying a chat with my eldest daughter, Olivia. We were discussing Brexit, and Olivia was explaining to me just how bad it will be, that people will lose their jobs and that we won't be able to trade and so on and so forth. Clearly, Olivia had formed a negative viewpoint with these colossal overgeneralizations. Like most things in life, Brexit has both negative and positive consequences in equal measure. So I pressed Olivia to explain where she was getting her lopsided views from. My teacher at school, she replied as a matter of fact. The fact of the matter that I now speak to is this: the majority of society is under the hypnotic spell of a worldwide epidemic known as hearsay. Hearsay is exactly what it says on the tin. We hear, then we say. Which means a person repeats the same information that they've heard from another. Interestingly, hearsay originates as a term of law. Hearsay is to be the second-hand report of another person's words. And in a court of law, those words of hearsay are dismissible as evidence because they are spoken without verifiable proof. However, within the courts of culture, the words of hearsay are often accepted as truth without verification, where people just accept information without critical thought, never to question the credibility of what they hear, nor to question the credibility of the messenger. People hearsay don't think. Not only that, but in times of uncertainty, we do think with an ominous tone. Evolutionary design, we have this inbuilt antenna that slants with a pessimistic outlook towards the unknown. Back in the loincloth days, this acute attention towards the unknown was a valuable asset and ensured our survival. To evade those gnarly predators and defend against rival invaders, it was essential to be vigilant towards anything that posed a threat to our existence. In today's era, although we've swapped our loincloth for a more sophisticated Fabergé, as a collective, what still lies beneath those civilized veneers is the animalistic propensity to be aggressive, violent and brutally oppressive. I mean, just look at the evils that we inflict upon ourselves: the wars, murders, rapes, genocide, slavery, and human trafficking. Malevolence is a systemic darkness within the collective human psyche, etched deep within the embryonic blueprints. The human psyche is hotwired towards a negative frequency. Each one of us is born predisposed with a sensitivity towards danger and death. And this proclivity leans the mind towards imagining the worst case scenarios when confronted by things that we don't know or don't understand, where one is likely to spin the unknown facts of a situation with a negative slant. Illustrating this point in case with a perfect example, I want to refer to the Chinese Whispers world record that was set in 2008 by 1,300 odd British children aged between 7 and 11 years old. The original whisper was breaking a record, and after just 500 children along the chain, that whisper was then recorded as being "everyone is evil." And as you can imagine, when passing a whisper down a chain, there was kids that were unsure of what they heard, and thus, inside their own mind, they started to twist the message. Chinese whispers is the cultural hearsay equivalent. It demonstrates how original messages are distorted in translation from one person to the next, and how information can be misinterpreted with a sinister twist. And people do like to squawk away in parrot fashion to share that juicy gossip of exciting and shocking news. Like the game Chinese Whispers, information is whispered between the ears of family members, friends, and work colleagues, and can circulate with far-reaching potential and distortion. For example, Bob shares a story with Barbara at home. Barbara then goes home and spills the beans to Beth. Beth then bends the ear of Bert during a chat at the office water station. Bert goes home after work and mentions the story to his wife Belinda. Belinda goes to her evening yoga class and informs Brooklyn. Brooklyn then spins her version of events to Bridget at work the next day, and after that chain of events, as you can imagine, the final whisper is likely to bear little resemblance to the initial rapture. You see, we do have this ancestral proclivity to be wary of potential danger, and we are hot on the trot to warn others of our greatest fears. That's why bad news travels fast. In fact, some people are hooked on bad news. They are transfixed on their daily dose of human disasters, cultural upheavals, and social dramas. They love it. They can't wait to be the bearer of bad news. And in today's crazy world, the news has become this bad acid trip of fear porn where the evil, scandalous, horrific, disturbing, and dark shadows of the human psyche are pumped 24/7 into the collective zeitgeist. When plugged into the insipid virus of bad news, one is likely to be demoralized and depressed by the message of doom and gloom, and it's not far to imagine what kind of negative impact this abhorrent fear porn of news reporting is having on the mental health of society. And I do wonder how great this world really could be if we all spent more time circulating the whispers of inspiration, prosperity, love, and abundance. However, those infected with the doom and gloom media virus are below such enriched thinking. They are what I refer to as the valley people. The valley people are inured to the dreary and damp conditions of living in a downbeat world. The valley people whisper with enthusiasm about the dark world that they live in, and they love to prophesize about the end of the world as we know it, doomsday scenarios. Now, emerging back from the global pandemic into some kind of normal, which I do hope is not an abnormal repackaged as a new normal, there will be a lot of bleak, wary and doubtful perspectives out there. Negativity will be seeping down the streets, sweeping across our screens and screaming out loud with its complaints. There will be lots of valley people who've lost faith in humanity and subscribing to this nihilistic belief that the world has gone to the crapper. And those unable to see the breaking dawn of a better horizon will be looking to qualify their pessimistic thoughts with you. Therefore, you need a strong mind not to be infected by the securities, doubts and fears of the valley people. So do your best to avoid being sucked into the social shit lips of the cultural hearsay. It is very unlikely that goodness will be whispered into your ear, so be on guard and do not get drawn into negative people, especially when you're feeling down and thinking the worst, because as they say, misery loves company. If you do align with the problems that you hear of, then you can never be the solution to make right the wrongs that you speak of. In participation of the problems, you have become part of the problems. Non-participation in negativity does require one to extricate themselves from the problematic views of the valley people, and you will find that it's those closest to you that are likely to be fearful, doubtful and rejected when you dare to speak of positive changes. So just smile kindly and be on your way, treading cautiously past those negative outlooks as you hike towards the summit of your highest ideals. Never, never rage into the dying light with negative people. Instead, rave forward into your emerging light. Shine beyond the problems that you see. Be the say, here solution and spread good vibrations of love, joy and prosperity into this world, because boy, is it needed. Now let's discuss another topic that I've titled Nothing But the Facts. I'll start by saying that cultural hearsay is the enemy of intelligence and the keeper of ignorance. And the unwitting participant of cultural hearsay is a spreader of unverified information. Unverified information, I think, is the reason that we live in this era of nescience, which is a culture that lacks true knowledge and wisdom. So how has this society got to a point of spreading unverified information? Well, we need to think about where we get our information from. People do mistakenly think that they are knowledgeable just because they've got access to a lot of information on their digital screens. They are not. There is a trumpeting difference between the intellectual brass of comprehensive knowledge that one internalizes from decades of study versus the arbitrary information that one consumes from their sporadic media feed. I also think that it's a mistake to assume that one has a well-informed viewpoint from the bite-sized pieces of information that they tweezer out from their usual media resources. Well-informed viewpoints are established from investigating the holistic, objective, and opposing facts of a subject to ascertain the accuracy and truthfulness of the content. Without critical investigation of the information that one consumes, one can only be the participant of hearsay. Which is to say, if you are not looking to qualify the facts of what you consume, but instead take it as gossip, then you are likely to accept and share unverified information. Without investigation into the facts, how can we be so certain of the truths that we think? Why do we automatically accept with blind faith the claims of authority figures, celebrities, movie stars and news anchors without verifying the facts of what they claim? How do we know the claims that they make are from a verified source? Are these people not immune to human error? Are these people unsusceptible to erroneous information? Do these people not have a subjective bias and a commercial agenda that twists the narrative? I say woe unto those whom accept claims on blind faith. Do, however, think that people are awakening from their blind faith courtesy of the mainstream media. Most of us have now become familiar with the term fake news. It's a phrase that's been coined to describe media broadcasters that obfuscate or omit the truth for the purpose of influencing people to accept a specific agenda. Nowadays, the overall news agenda seems to be to boost propaganda, ratings and profit. They seem to be in the business of flogging headlines that sell, not headlines that tell the truth. They embellish truth to captivate the audience, not give objective facts to educate the audience. Neither will you be informed with social media. The majority of social media has become an echo chamber of unverified information that is distorted via the chain of whispers from uncredited people, where information is repackaged and reposted with a different style and slant. Yet, most people fall into the unconscious trap of accepting information that's being proclaimed as the truth without verification. And we can't help it. Since kindergarten days, we've been conditioned to passively accept the spoken words of an authoritative figurehead. We've also been socially conditioned throughout the years to accept the social consensus. We mistakenly accept something to be true just because the majority believe it to be true. And like lemmings, we go along to get along. But just because someone says it is true does not make it the truth. They themselves can be repeating information that they've not verified. Therefore, the worst mistake is to outsource your thinking to someone else's thinking. Without verification of what is said, you are susceptible to the errors, mistruths, deceptions, misinformation and disinformation of cultural hearsay. You're likely to follow the one-eyed witch doctor over the cliff edge. When you think about it, in this world that is so convoluted with unverified information, unless we are the first-hand witness of the original source of that information so that we can verify the fact of it, we just simply can't believe anything that we are told. The best precaution, therefore, is to veer on the side of skepticism and take everything that you hear say, read say, and even watch say with a pinch of salt, not forming any beliefs until you've verified the source. And have you ever stopped to question the credibility of your own personal beliefs? Have you ever wondered how much of your beliefs have been formed with information that you accepted as the truth without verifying those facts to support that conclusion? That's because when accepting unverified information, we are prone to forming false beliefs. False beliefs come from incomplete, inaccurate, and erroneous information. We believe something to be the truth when it's not. Since it is our core belief systems that influence the decisions that we make and the directions that we take, when guided by false beliefs, we are error-prone. Error-prone is to keep making mistakes that lead to painstaking outcomes, often getting it wrong and making it worse. We are error-prone because we lack sound judgment. Sound judgment comes from true wisdom. True wisdom is the sensible thinking that correlates with the facts of reality. We can only gain wisdom by dealing with the facts of reality. The unwise people, however, are those with false beliefs. They are unconscious, gullible, lazy, unguarded, and ignorant to the facts of reality. Easily contaminated with false beliefs, the unwise people are susceptible to the errors of judgment. The error of judgment is to behave delusional to the facts of reality and experience the subsequent pains of conflict and misfortune. Unfortunately, people never see the errors of their ways because they hold on to their false beliefs with such strong conviction. They've become resistant towards anything or anyone that challenges the truth as they see it, even when their false belief is exposed to the hard, cold facts of reality. The egoic pride of a person is unaccepting and dismissing of those facts. In fact, we have all been duped by the egoic illusion of thinking that we know the truth, except we don't. We all have a personal bias and we distort the facts of reality to correlate with our unique way of seeing reality. We bend reality to align with our egoic desires and perception. The truth as we see it is a personalized distortion of the facts as we would prefer to see them. With a limited perspective that's ignorant to know the absolute facts of something, one is likely to form erroneous judgments, assumptions, and conclusions more often than not. One is liable to form false beliefs about family members, friends, the neighbours, the local community, and even the world in general. Furthermore, reality itself is a transient body of flowing energy that continually changes. People change, ideologies change, environments change, and economies change. In other words, the facts of reality are continually changing. Therefore, if we do not continually upgrade and adapt our thinking with the changing facts of reality, then we pin ourselves to a delusional perception that things are, that things always will continue as they've always been. The perception that is inconsistent with the changing facts of reality will always be met with suffering. The suffering of holding on to that which has gone, the suffering of pining after that which can never be, the suffering of conflict with that which does not meet with our expectations. Therefore, making judgments, assumptions, and conclusions within a changing reality is delusional thinking. With delusional thinking, we are living with a reality inside our head that is in many, many ways different to the actual reality outside of our head. And if that's not enough to make our heads spin like fools, we can often clash horns with people to assert the truth as we see it, where two people will engage with a grudge match to uphold their personal views of I'm right and you're wrong. And we will sometimes get upset, frustrated, angry, and retaliate even when the other person tries to correct us with their version of the truth, even though we may be wrong and they may be right. You think about it, the whole thing is ridiculous. Even during those friendly conversations, we are exclusive with our views, where often a misinterpretation takes place between two people. When two people converse, the words exchanged are interpreted from two different perspectives. The words are said and heard in accordance to the subjective bias of the person. This means that the same conversation is being interpreted differently. There are two different experiences taking place. And in most cases, people converse without even knowing that there's a misinterpretation taking place. They just nod in agreement and without clarifying exactly what the other person means. One has to therefore wonder how much of what one believes and has concluded about family members and friends is accurate. How much of the relationship itself is based on delusional thinking? How much do we unknowingly fabricate the truth about the person as we would prefer it to be? Could we actually accept the raw facts of our closest relationships? Because In many cases, it's those little lies that we tell ourselves about our closest relationships that keeps the relationship going. So when knowing that one does have a limited perspective, this should release one from the burden of needing to interfere with situations or people in order to prove one's viewpoint as being right. And in knowing that others have a limited perspective, one should be able to refrain from dispute and resentment whenever someone disagrees with or criticizes with what one thinks, and realize that the path of self-improvement is paved with the wisdoms that come from the objective facts of reality. We can only make improvements with wisdom. Wisdom equals personal growth. Personal growth is to cultivate life-enhancing results that come from the good judgment of making right choices. Good judgment does require one to be wary and discerning of hearsay, to reject information that is unverifiable, and only internalize information that has been verified as fact. And it is you that must verify that fact. You simply can't rely on anyone else to tell you that it's fact. The best practice, therefore, is to no longer passively agree nor assume and conclude that the good friend, the family member, the authoritative figure, or the celebrity that you idolize is speaking the absolute truth. Engage these people with an open, humble, and inquisitive approach and question what they say with due diligence. Then make comparisons with alternative resources to see if what they say holds up. The crucial part of self-improvement is to discard false beliefs whilst gaining true wisdom. True wisdom is factual, and this transformation from false beliefs to true wisdom will be expressed as a radical change in your viewpoint, and this will be noticed by those closest to you. But slowly and surely people will change their perception of you. Either they will come around to your factual way of knowing, or they will refute the objective facts as they continue defending a false belief that you have recognized and since disposed of. That's not to say that we end relationships, build barriers, or go on the attack. We can accept that people have different views to us. We just don't have to accept what they believe. It's a case of you have your way and I have mine. When, however, those differences are incompatible or clashing, then bifurcation will be inevitable. This could result in the severance of close relationships. If so, then let the wheat separate from the chaff. To summarize this topic, humans are as fallible as their false beliefs. The beliefs that we live by and promote are only as correct as the facts that support those beliefs. The facts are only as accurate as the interpretation we have to ascertain the accuracy of those facts. Our interpretation is only as accurate as our ability to suspend personal bias and look at the facts objectively. And nothing but the objective facts will set you free from the delusions of a subjective bias with false beliefs. Now let's jump into a provocative topic called mental masturbation. And with this topic, I want to share a short story about an interaction that I once had with an old neighbour. So there I am with my neighbour having a chat, and I say to him, "So what gets your juices going? Surely you must have a dream." And then after a brief pause, Michael, my neighbour, replied with, "Well, I would like to explore Mongolia a few years from now." "Ah, so you like to travel then? So why not explore England? There's some beautiful parts of our country to visit." "Nah," he says, shaking his head dismissively. "Why not?" I bemused. "It just doesn't appeal to me. It's all the same." "So what's stopping you from actually going to Mongolia in the near future?" I asked. "I'm just waiting to see if World War III breaks out or not." Needless to say, I was totally unprepared for his answer. Michael was my neighbour from a shared property that I lived in a few years back. He was renting a small room across from the communal hallway. And we first met the day that I moved into the building. Michael was opening up his front door just as I was walking past, and that's where we struck up the conversation. Equally as disturbing as Michael's comment about World War III, which revealed to me a lot about the state of his mind, was the state of his room. Whilst I was trying desperately hard to maintain eye contact with Michael, as we spoke at his front door, my periphery vision was darting all over the place, trying to make sense of all the background data. It was as though I was peering through his doorway into the bridge of the Starship Enterprise. Stacked everywhere from floor to the ceiling were shelves, consoles, keyboards, screens, wires, buttons, lights, DVDs, and desks with heaps of movie memorabilia. Now you can tell a lot about someone from their habitat. Michael was clearly a serial hoarder, and I very much doubt that he stretched his legs often. His unkempt appearance and unsightly paunch added weight to my convictions. Incidentally, every evening that I returned back home, Michael's front door was slightly ajar, and with just enough for me to see him glued to his electronics. He was totally possessed by his possessions. Evidently, Michael had constructed this artificial reality inside the four walls of his room. He was practically living inside a mental prison cell. Michael did exhibit the patterns of a prolific mental masturbator. Mental masturbation is a crude and yet catchy term that describes someone that lives mostly within the mental realm of reality. With mental masturbation, one is mostly being pleasured by that which stimulates the mind. Like Michael on board his makeshift Enterprise, digital stimulus is often the tool of gratification. And we will discuss the implications of digital stimulus in the next topic. For now, mental masturbation also occurs when someone is being pleasured by the stimulating thoughts of their own mind. To a certain degree, we all mentally masturbate. The prolific mental masturbator, however, is one that loses themselves in the neuroticisms of an overactive mind. It's the overthinkers, hyper-intellectuals, hypochondriacs, hyper-creatives, the psychotics and the worriers. These are the ones that tend to get possessed by obsessive thinking. Unfortunately, this complex world with its endless distractions and demands that requires extraordinary amounts of thinking has morphed the human experience from one of sentient being to the insane doing. We've become fixated upon the tasks that we must complete to maintain our lifestyle schedules and securities, and this need to work and keep it all going round does lead to obsessing over the to-dos and the to-gets and the to-haves. When busy trying to weigh things up, chew things over and figure things out, we never surface to live within the present moment of now. Think about it. Think of all the time that you spend throughout the day recalling the past which has already gone or dreaming of a future that's not already here. Whilst your mind is masturbating over timelines that don't exist, you are desensitized from the sensory enjoyment of now. When consumed with thought, we have detuned from the sensations of sensory experience. We are less aware of and less attuned with the five senses of touch, taste, sight, sound and smell. It's to go for a walk in a beautiful park, and because you are so consumed with thought that you don't see the trees, you don't hear the birds, and you don't smell the flowers. When busy thinking about the what, the when and the how, you are disconnected from the here and now. But we are most content when enjoying the sensory experience of the present moment and being enriched with the sensory input of nature. We are sentient beings that thrive in the open expanse of nature, not thinking beings that thrive inside confined spaces. So peacefulness will evade those lost within the translation of thoughts. And with mental masturbation, we can get so lost inside the head that we neglect other aspects of reality. The ruminating mind is less attentive towards relationships, hobbies, health and finances, etc. And mental masturbation can be so perverse that it causes one to withdraw from social interactions so that one can closet alone with their thoughts. We can get confined to the perimeters of the lifestyle that we habituate with, becoming the arbiter of our own self-enslavement by constructing this personal environment of restricted behavioural patterns that limits the experience of life. And just like my ex-neighbour, Michael, we can easily get imprisoned to a boxed room lifestyle where we have constructed these mental cell blocks, these invisible boundaries, where habitual thinking is what keeps one entrapped within a boxed-in routine. Mental masturbators are likely to ejaculate a lot of thoughts, suffer from present moment impotence, and show the symptoms of a droopy lifestyle libido. I do hope that my dry innuendo gives you a wet giggle. On a more serious note, to live mainly inside the head is to dream away your life inside a boxed room. The solution, therefore, is to mentalize reality less and actualize reality more in the present moment of now. To wake up and break out from the tyranny of oppressive thoughts to enjoy the freedom of actual reality.